Thanks. A pleasant good evening to you, comrades and friends, and most importantly, members, residents of St. James Central. I want to welcome all of you to this part of Barbados who are visiting here for the purpose of this meeting. And I want to start by saying to you that tonight I intend to speak to you in much the same vein that Dale Marshall just spoke to you, perhaps a little bit more bluntly, on the question of the violation and abuse of the law of this country by the government, and on the breach and violation of the public trust. And I want to start by walking you through what are the real issues confronting this district tonight, because I suspect that a lot of you don't fully grasp the severity of what is confronting us. The people of Bagatelle, the people of Hoyts Village, the people of Kings Village, Redmond's Village, Bagatelle Gardens, Bagatelle Terrace, Prior Park, all live within a mile, maybe a mile and a half in some instances, of Barbados's only metal dump. In fact, let me tell you that St. James Central has the unenviable responsibility of being the location where all of this nation's garbage is deposited. We have the mangrove landfill and we have the metal dump facility here in Bagatelle. And residents of this district, they are taxpayers like anybody else. They make their contribution like anybody else. They have built and invested in homes like anybody else. And they have established businesses down here. And in fact, if you go in Hoyts Village, you will find several people who have lived in Hoyts Village for all of their lives, and in Kings Village as well, and can trace as far back as the memory of man doth run that their family has been in that district. And yes, they were at the back door of Barbados's only metal dump. And for many years, many people out here would have not even had reason to remember that the dump existed. It was under the management and the responsible and capable management of the Sanitation Service Authority. Hey, one morning, 7 or so weeks ago, hundreds of people woke up to discover that day after day, night or evening rather, I want to analyze evening after evening, all week long, 7 days a week, including Sunday, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., sometimes later, noise from a tractor excavating, sheets of nasty black dust covering people's houses from front house right through to the back, walls vibrating, floorboards trembling, all through the day, incessant noise in the place. The quiet of, oh, and don't let me not forget, the smell from fine metal particulates in the air. When I walk through, my sinuses run like water. And people recognize all of a sudden, and without prior notice, that they were no longer entitled to enjoy the quiet peace. They were no longer entitled to the quiet enjoyment of their homes. And people, quite rightly so, made their way to the metal dump entrance where you had the management facility when the sanitation service was in charge, to complain to the supervisor of the dump that they can't understand what is now happening to them. How come this has been inflicted on us? And when they get there, they were told that the dump no longer concerns the Sanitation Service Authority. It belongs to some people called Bees Recycling, and to step off of the people's blasted compound. That is what they were told. Get off the compound. Now, for those of you who do not know, and I'm going to go through this step by step because I want this country to understand what I mean when I say that there has been a violation of public trust, a violation of the public's interest, and I'm going to come later to the question of the rule of law. I want you all to know that when the folks affected, especially the ones in Hoyts Village, determined that clearly they were going to get no satisfaction at the metal dump, they then sought out their Member of Parliament, one George Cornwell Hudson. Obese and obzucky idiot that he is, Cornwell told people that he was going to talk to the owners of the dump. And let me say to you now that the bees recycling are owned by people or a man who you may know as Mr. Proper Pork and his brother, who I presume is part of the Pork family. And Cornwell tells them that he will speak to Proper Pork and family and have the entrance to the dump wet on a morning or on an evening. Well, of course, nothing so ever happened. But the more important thing is this, that the noise that I am telling you about, the dust, the sheets of nasty black dust all through people's house, that had nothing to do with any entrance to the dump. It was because of the fact that the new operators of the dump at Bagatelle had, without notice or discussion with the residents around, determined that they were going to dig out a hole probably about an acre in width and at least 50 feet in depth. As it has turned out, the residents turned their back on Cornwell and they made their way to Proper Pork. And he, in fairness to him, did ensure that a letter went out to a few houses. Now, I know Winnie, and I know Andrew, and I know many of you did not get any letter. And the reason why I can say I know is because, as you know, I would have gone to practically every house that was in the immediate vicinity, especially all through Kings and Hoyts Village. But there are some people who did get letters. And because I pledged to you just now that I am going to walk you and this country through this thing, I am going to begin by sharing with you the letter that was sent out by the new management at Bagatelle Metal Facility. And it says, "Dear neighbor, we have recently acquired the quarry at Bagatelle. Our intention is to continue its use as a metal collection center. From here, we will process the metal by sorting and cutting it up for export. In preparation of the site, an automobile metal shredder will be used and there will be some excavation of marl and dirt. We will minimize any inconvenience to you during this preparation, which should last approximately 8 weeks. And we invite you to let us know of any inconvenience you may experience." Now, two issues arise in this matter, comrades. First of all, Bagatelle has been in operation for nearly 50 years. And it has always been a metal disposal site. So, to write and to say that it would now be used to sort and cut up metal, as I just read to you, is to indicate that the owners contemplate a change of use, and a fundamental change of use, materially affecting the neighborhood in the immediate vicinity of the dump. Well, that's clear. And that raises specific legal issues, because we still live in a land that should be governed by the rule of law. The second issue is the use of this thing that they call a metal shredder, an automobile metal shredder. Now let me explain that Bagatelle dump is full of this country's last half of a century metal waste. The old fridges that you turn your back on, throw down in here. The stoves, the washing machines, throw down in there. The buses, the cars, the vans, throw down in there. The use of a shredder is a matter that has been attracting the attention of many parts of the civilized world. It is a matter that has caused deep concern to environmentalists around the world. It is a matter that causes deep concern to principled administrators of countries where the shredders are being used because of the dangers that are inherent in the use of the process. Now I want to say this not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of some of the buffoons who now occupy the corridors of government in this country. If you go home tonight, and if you got a pen and paper, write it down. I want you to Google www.newyorktimes.com and look for an article published in 2012 on the 10th of February. I want you also to go to www.San Diego Coast Keeper. It is a blog. And look for articles published there. And they will connect you to several other articles. Because it's a problem in England. It is a problem across Europe. It is a problem in the United States of America. And this is what the problem is about. In California, the issue arose that legislators needed to tighten regulations for auto recyclers. The absence of appropriate regulations, they say, allowed powerful automobile recycling industry to create a toxic buildup that now looms as a hazard to environmental health. Automobile shredders rip and grind material into fist-sized pieces. The auto shredder waste is the 15 to 20% of the vehicle material that remains after the vehicle has been shredded. It comprises dangerous metallic waste such as copper, zinc, mercury from switches, lead from wheel weights, and a sandy dirt sludge which comes from glass and rubber and other non-metallic waste that remains from shredded automobiles and household appliances. That is what the plan is for Hoyts Village. Let's be very clear. That is the plan for Hoyts Village, about which the people in Hoyts Village have not to this day been consulted. When I call in on a call-in program 12 days or so ago, in order to prosecute a case on behalf of the residents of this constituency, which I have had the privilege of representing, and which I aim to represent again, I get cut off. Because something that I said apparently did not suit the political position of somebody in authority there. But I am in St. James Central tonight, and I will talk tonight because I will not be cut off in St. James Central. And when they trouble the people down here, they trouble me. And when they trouble me, they pull the tail of a political gully boar. And I will fight like a gully boar in order to defend the people down here. This nastiness is what is visited or planned to be visited without consultation on this community. And I go further. When you Google, you will find that in September of 2011, a company called SA Recycling Limited used a metal recycler for 120 days without an approved air pollution control system in place, in contravention of California's air pollution control laws. and it led to an estimated 4 tons of toxic particulate being released into the air and contaminating neighboring bay waters downwind. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I understand that we are on top of a hill here, and right down to the bottom there is the palatial Gold Coast. Because the other thing St. James Central does, it don't just house the dump, it also houses the tourism industry of this country. We go a little further. 2 years after that, a study was done by the United States Department of Toxic Substance Control, and it indicated that incidences of morbidity and mortality, and Jerome Walcott would tell you that that simply means sickness and death, were far in excess of California's average, and this has been attributed to the same fallout that I just talked about. It says that in November of 2011, the United States Department of Toxic Substance Control issued an imminent and substantial endangerment stop order against another company using a metal grinder, automobile metal grinder, a recycling company called Pacific Steel, because dust blowing from piles of contaminated toxic waste from its auto shredder was placing a nearby community at risk. In 2009, the same Department of Toxic Substances Control published a paper indicating that automobile shredder waste should be considered hazardous matter and disposed of in special landfills. It warned that automobile recycling dust poses a danger if, and hear this, if it is situated too close to communities, as it is easily scattered by wind. It poses a fire hazard, and it has the potential for contamination of coastal water if appropriate clean water and storm pollution prevention legislation was not in place. Bring the umbrella, Peter, man. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me say to you that I have been practicing law in this country now for 15 years. And Barbados has no air pollution control regulations which have been adopted for automobile shredders. Equally, I can say to you that Barbados has no storm pollution prevention legislation. And equally, I can say to you that Barbados has no hazardous waste disposal site. So what then are we doing? What are we doing? How do we come to a point where we are in the process of, we have granted permission for people to commence this type of operation in the middle of an established set of communities where people have lived and have been living for many, many decades without having first put in place any or all of the necessary safeguards that are considered imperative in highly developed societies which are more able to defend themselves in circumstances such as these. We have no capacity when it comes to dealing with what they are calling hazardous waste. We have no capacity to deal with the storm pollution by way of water. In fact, we know here, and Winnie could tell you, because she has experienced it every day until I came along and put drains in front of her house, that when the rainfall in Bagatelle, or when the rainfall in St. Thomas rather, up in the hill, or in St. Andrew up in the hill, it washes all down through Bagatelle, it washes all down through Hoyts Village, it washes all down through Kings Village, it washes all down Holders Hill and onto that west coast. We have none of the protective mechanisms in law that they are saying around the world should be in place before you bow down to an enterprise such as this. And I enjoyed and agreed with and associate myself with that which Cynthia Ford said from this place tonight. Yes, we have to have recycling in Barbados. And yes, we need to bring this country to the point where it can do substantial recycling. But you don't just come and visit a potential problem on people. There, man. And don't even have the common courtesy of calling a meeting with the people to say this is what we can do. This is what we are going to allow a company to do. And I want you to understand, I am so vexed with Proper Port or his family. I am vexed with the government of Barbados and that buffoon who passes himself off as your member of parliament. Don't call him that. I agree he is fit to be tied, stake out in a pasture somewhere, but don't curse the man. Don't curse the man. But I'm going to say this as well. When once we had come to that point where we understood clearly what was taking place, I was not surprised, therefore, when after I called in on the calling program and I raised the public alarm about the need for there to be an environmental impact assessment conducted so that people who have a decision to make would be in a complete possession of the fullest possible knowledge. And I said that there should have been an environmental impact assessment, simply meaning that they should have come down in this community and done some sort of measurement and testing of what the wind is like, make some sort of analysis of how it's going to impact on the houses nearby, make some sort of come to an understanding of what it might do to your investments. The God people have taken their whole life savings and put there that are 5 meters and 10 meters away from the back of that dump, man. 2 minutes walk from the back of the dump. And nothing so was done. And an MP for this area who sat in the cabinet was part of the process. I come into that now. But I was not surprised when, having raised the public alarm in the manner I did, that the town planner, God bless his heart, came down here and issued a stop order against the company within 2 days of my calling in. And I congratulate him tonight for having dealt with the public interest aspect of this matter. But there is another side to this, which is now touching and concerning the rule of law. And I want to say to you that you have to understand, and you must be very clear in your mind, that there are some people who are born in this world and they have been born with a set of principles. Many of us are born with a set of principles that we clasp to our bosoms with bonds of steel, and we carry them with us throughout our lives. But unfortunately, all men are not created equal. And there is another category of persons. Among them, many are to be found congregating in the other place, who feel that this society is something akin to a pig trough, where you can juck in your snout and push in 4 trotters if you could, and gobble up as much as you can consume without reference or interest in how it impacts on anybody else. And let me say to you as well, that among that category are also a group who can comfortably be described as the political harlots of this world. The modern day political Judas Iscariots, who would turn their back on Christ himself if the price was right. And what we are seeing here is a byproduct of the fact that Leroy Paris is of no more use to the Democratic Labour Party. New friends have to be found. New alliances have to be made. Now I say to you that that is not an approach to politics that I can abide by. We have to ask serious questions about this matter. How did the Cabinet of Barbados come as they did? How did the Cabinet come to give permission for this type of project to be done and these potentially wrong things to be done to humbug you? What kind of information was put before the Cabinet? That's what you need to know. And inasmuch as you have a Member of Parliament who has not condescended to open his mouth to speak to this matter, even though I have kept it in the public domain now for nearly 3 weeks, and inasmuch as your Member of Parliament sits in the Cabinet and he ain't choose to even belch in your direction or pass gas, at least if he belch or fart, you will know he's alive. You will know he's alive. But inasmuch as he ain't taking you on, then I feel I have a duty, comrades, to tell you what went before the Cabinet. And I hold in my hand the Cabinet paper which is dated 2012-02-28. That's the 28th of February. Bring the umbrella again, Peter. I don't want it to get wet. I have to keep this here so all through between now and whenever election call, this gonna be held kept safely. Don't ask where I get it from. It blowing through my front house. No, I ain't got the Carrot Road. It blowing through my front house. Now, the most impressive thing about what this Cabinet paper contains is that which it does not contain. Let me say that to you again. The most impressive thing about this Cabinet paper is what it does not say. Now, when I went into Cabinet in 2003, Owen Arthur, and my permanent secretary both told me that Cabinet must make a decision based on the widest and fullest possible information. That if you are charged with bringing something to the Cabinet of Barbados, and if you are in the Cabinet of Barbados and you have to make a decision to impact on the lives and well-being of people in this country, then do so on the basis of the widest and fullest possible advice and information. That makes sense to you? Robin the Rain got you? Does that make sense to you? Now, when you read this Cabinet paper, it contains absolutely no technical advice. That's the first thing. You would have expected that impacting as it does on the environment of this district and Barbados in general, that some input would have been sought and some input would have been made by way of advice from the Chief Environmental Health Officer. No such thing in this Cabinet paper. You have heard the Marshal tonight say that the Cabinet decision was taken without any input from the Chief Town Planner. And that is a fact. And you know it to be a fact because the Chief Town Planner came after Cabinet had made a decision to give Proper Port and his family that land down there to do with what they will. The Town Planner came in after I complained about the environmental impact assessment and then shut it down. So clearly his input was not there. You can take that for granted. Equally, the Cabinet paper, as you will come to hear shortly, purports to take that land and swap it as if it was a breadfruit, to swap it as if it was a hand of bananas, to swap it as if it was a yam, with another piece of land up in River Bay, St. Lucie. And you would have expected that the persons in whom your land is vested precisely the chief housing officer of this country would have had some input into this cabinet paper. Nothing so happened. And equally, as I've told you, sanitation service has run that dump for 40 years or more. And not a word by way of recommendation, advice or input in this cabinet paper from this Barbados Sanitation Service Authority. So then what does it contain? First of all, you need to know that the cabinet meeting took place on the 8th of March 2012. And paragraphs 1 to 6 of the paper indicate that it is about an agreement to operate a recycling facility at Bagatelle, St. Thomas by Bees Recycling. And they are seeking Cabinet's approval to enter into an agreement with Bees Recycling for the operation of that facility. Paragraph 7 says, and I can quote it at length, Bees Recycling operating out of Cane Garden, St. Thomas, and Cynthia told you what the people in Cane Garden are experiencing, has an established operation for the handling of plastics, mixed grade scrap metal, glass, cardboard, and automotive tires. The next paragraph is paragraph 8. It says, the firm, meaning Bees, has expressed a long interest in relocating to the Bagatelle area and being allowed access to the bulky waste disposal facility to remove more significant quantities of scrap metal. Now I pause there to say to you that the interest therefore is in mining, in exploiting and extracting 40 years or more of this country's metallic deposits which are located there. And in case you don't understand what that means, let me also say to you that in this world, recycled metal is sold by the ton. It is a lucrative and large business. Paragraph 8 continues, there are significant environmental issues with Bees Recycling as it operates at its current position. It is the considered opinion of the Environmental Protection Department and the Town Planning Department that Bees Recycling should cease operation as a matter of urgency or relocate. So the second thing that you have to understand is that where they are now, there are environmental problems. Cynthia tell you no lie. Where they are now, there are environmental problems. And the position of the town planner was that it should shut down or go elsewhere. What the town planner was not consulted about was that it was to come here. Now, it goes on at paragraph 9 to say, to this end, Bees Recycling has indicated a willingness to relocate to Bagatelle bulky waste facility to take over the operations there. Bees Recycling is willing to transfer ownership of a portion of land in the area of River Bay, St. Lucie to the government of Barbados in exchange. In light of the above, the Minister of the Environment and Drainage, that is Law, strongly supports the position that the government of Barbados should enter into an arrangement with Bees Recycling on condition that, and they give you 3 conditions. The first is that Bees Recycling should submit a location and operation plan which is acceptable to the town planner. Well, I have already spoken to that, because after they took over control and after they had been using it for nearly 2 months, I kept noise. And it was then that the town planner realized what happened and came and shut it down and asked for the same environmental impact assessment to be done that had not been done when this cabinet decision was taken. Now I want to say as well on that point, now let me pause here to talk straight talk to my people. Bagatelle is and has always been, people of St. James Central, hear me, hear me. Bagatelle is and has always been a disposal site for metal. To commence a recycling operation at Bagatelle means that you are commencing a new usage of that facility and a new usage for the area. And as such, you require two things. The first thing that you require is that there should be a formal application put in to the Chief Town Planner in accordance with the law of Barbados in order to use the area for a purpose that it has never been used for before. The second thing that you require is that there should be not just an application but an approval by the Town Planner for the purposes to which you have applied. And in the absence of either of the two of those, no cabinet, especially in the absence of the two of those, and also an environmental impact assessment to help inform the decisions, no cabinet should properly grant any permission of the nature that has been granted, because cabinet is charged first and foremost in law to protect the public's interest. Protect the interests of the people, man. So George Hudson, where were you? Cornwell, where were you? You are confirming in people's mind that you want to go up in there to eat food and sleep. How can you agree and be part of a decision which, without any reference to the proper technical input, without any reference to an environmental impact study to see how it's going to affect on the lives of the people who vote for you and put you there, Cornwell, without any permission being granted by the Town Planner, how can a cabinet make the decision that it made? Well, I want to say to you that I have studied this matter as closely as I can. And I see and have been able to come up with no evidence that can be found of any application to the Town Planner by these people operating down there. I can find none. As indeed I told this country on VOB that I could find no evidence of an environmental impact assessment having been done. And I say to you tonight that when I arrive at my chambers tomorrow morning, I begin to prepare the necessary documentation so as to bring an administrative law action against the government and cabinet of Barbados, asking for the court to declare that the cabinet decision on this matter was made improperly, irrationally, unreasonably, and unlawfully. And that position will be taken because it can't end there. These people don't own Barbados. You can't just bypass processes as you wish. And I want to say as well that when you go further into this cabinet paper, the mind boggles. You need to understand. I told you about 3 conditions. I gave the first one already. The second condition, B's Recycling should come to an agreement with the Ministry of Housing and Lands on the transfer of a portion of land in the area of River Bay, St. Lucie. Now, comrades, I've been in town too long. I've been in town too long. And I can tell you that, yeah, like Chalky, I can tell you that I do not know of anybody. I do not know of anybody who has their tentacles at the highest levels of this economy and their feet stuck firmly in the economic soil of this country. People who are holding and controlling big money, who give away anything by transfer or otherwise if it can make money for them. I don't know if it ever having happened. So when I hear that wonderful citizen as Mr. Bina is, that he is prepared to give away his land in exchange for that, I just look to see what may lie behind it. Now this cabinet paper does not say a word about the size of the land at River Bay. It does not say a word about the value of the land at River Bay. The cabinet paper tells you nothing you need to know, because you know that Bina has that. Bina has your land there at the dump. But what have you got in exchange? You do not know if the land at River Bay is in the middle of nowhere. You do not know if it is fit for housing purposes. You do not know if it is fit for grazing 2 or 3 sheep. You do not even know if Mr. Byner can properly prove that he owns the land that he purports to be able to give away. You do not know because the cabinet paper does not say a word. But a decision was made by the cabinet of this country. And I don't blame Mr. Byner. And in fact, I have grown over the last few days to admire his acumen as a businessman. Because if he can find people who are prepared to do a swap for 19.2 acres of land here at Bagatelle in St. Thomas, and in exchange be handed over, hear this, in exchange for the 19.2 acres here at Bagatelle, the government is to be handed over all that Mr. Byner has at River Bay, which amounts to the grand total of 9.9 acres. Then Mr. Byner is a genius. Don't get vexed with him. You have to ask Cornwell Hudson and Dennis Lowe and Fumble Short and all the rest of them in the cabinet how it comes to be possible in this Barbados today that 19 acres of land can be swapped. Not only 19 acres, but 19.2, complete with all of the metallic wealth that this country has deposited in there over the last nearly half of a decade, half of a century, can be swapped for 9 acres up in River Bay. You gotta ask how that is possible, because they were the people who came to you and said there will be transparency, there will be no corruption, there will be clean government. That's what they came to you and they said. And I say to you tonight, comrades, that this kind of rubbish has to come to an end. I am not surprised that in Dennis Law, and Dennis Law, you can sue me. You can file a writ tomorrow morning if you want. I am not surprised that in Dennis Law has been located an individual who is prepared to deal in a highly improper manner with public affairs. I am not surprised that in Dennis Law has been located an individual who is prepared to deal in the worst possible way with the public's affairs, because Dennis Law had been written about a long time ago. A letter was written to Frandus Short dated the 26th of January 2012, and it was addressed to Frandl, but it says, I have been a member of the Democratic Labour Party since 1986. It's written by a man called Wesley Chandler from Bryan Road, Welchman Hall, St. Thomas. He went on to say that I wish to thank you for the opportunity to serve on the board of the Sanitation Service Authority. I do not want to continue to serve as a member of this board with the current minister, that is Dennis Lowe. The minister chairs meetings on a regular basis, and this should not be so. One matter which I would like to draw to your attention has to do with a truck that the minister asked to be sent to a specific engineering company to be fixed for over 74,000 Barbados dollars without having the 3 quotations as is usually required. This requirement was outlined to the minister by members of the Sanitation Service Management as well as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of the Environment. I am concerned about the behavior of the minister in insisting that a truck be fixed without obtaining the required quotations. This was carried in to Frandus Short, to Fumble, and deposited at his feet. But we know that Law was not part of the Eager 11. We know that when men were moving against Fumble, Law stood by his side. And I am saying to you tonight that the public affairs and public well-being of this country cannot be reduced so low as to have a situation whereby allies being formed behind closed doors in the cabinet of Barbados cannot be allowed for this kind of thing, turn a blind eye on this kind of behavior. No minister has any right chairing a board. The Sanitation Service Authority has a chairman who is appointed by law. How dare a minister come in and chair a board, and then chair a board for the specific purposes as have been outlined in this document? But Law is still a minister today. So obviously the signal sent to him by Fumble, to whom this letter was sent, is that it does not matter, Law. You can rest assured that you dare to stay. You can rest comfortably. And that is what has emboldened the operation that we see here in Bagatelle, and that is supposed to be humbugging you for the rest of your lives. I feel that the people in St. James Central must have better. I feel that there must be an ethos in this community and wider Barbados, man, that when things are going to happen to materially affect a district in which you live, come and consult with the people. They are not jackasses staked out in the field. They are citizens and taxpayers with a right to have an understanding of that which may be inflicted upon them. They have a right to digest and internalize a set of proposals, and they have a right to express an opinion on the set of proposals. But all of that is what you were robbed of. And I ask you tonight, as Arabar asked this country some years ago, what is the mirror image that you have of yourselves? No one man should have to stand up here and be the defender of all the hundreds of you and thousands of you, because ultimately it is our Barbados. We in this together. And we cannot allow a ragtag band of political misfits to come and wreak havoc in this Barbados. And that is what they are proposing to do. And as long as I stand here, win, lose or draw, I will stand in the breach to defend against the worthlessness that I am seeing happening on behalf of the people of this constituency. And that was the simple message that I came here to share with you tonight. I leave this place to go get a little rest and wake up tomorrow morning to join with Gregory Nichols, Mr. Gregory Nichols, attorney at law. I am going to invite Mr. Wilfred Abrams, who is also another public-spirited young lawyer, and we will take on the government of Barbados on behalf of you, the people. Good night, and God bless.